Hi, I'm John with Traditions Performance Firearms, and today we're going to go over clearing out your muzzleloader of any loads you might have, any catalyst that might be in the gun, and checking to make sure it's unloaded. Before this process begins, be sure to consult your owner's manual for whatever model you might currently have to get more information on these things. To begin, we're going to look at the brake action, and then we're going to go to the side locks and traditional models. For the brake action muzzleloader, as well as any other model, you have two steps that you need to look at. One is checking to make sure your gun is safe and unprimed, and the second is to check the muzzle for any obstructions or loads that might be in the barrel. To check to see if your brake action is unprimed, simply depress your barrel catch toward the trigger, slowly break your rifle open, and check the breech plug recess to see if there's any 209 primers in there. After checking to see to make sure you have no primers, close your rifle back and put your rifle on safe if your rifle has a safety. With the side lock muzzle loaders, to check and make sure your gun is both clear and unprimed, simply rotate your hammer to the captive half cock position. This will arrest your trigger and not allow the rifle to be fired mechanically. And check your nipple on the percussion to make sure you don't have a number 11 cap on the nipple. And on your flintlock model, again, rotate your hammer to captive half cock position, arresting the trigger and making sure that mechanically it cannot fire. Rotate your frizzen to the forward position, exposing your flash pan and your flash hole liner. Be sure to clear these of any 4F powder or any other catalyst that might be in there to help ensure that any sparks or embers won't set off the gun. From this point, we're going to check the muzzles to make sure we don't have any obstructions or loads inside the barrel. It's always important that if you do find an obstruction in the barrel, never fire the obstruction out of your muzzleloader. Be sure to consult our videos on disassembly and unloading your rifle before continuing any further. To check and make sure that your rifles are unloaded, on our brake action models, we take the jag off of the ramrod, and when it arrives in the gun, it will be with the loading end down. You take that off and you flip it to lengthen out your ramrod. And on the brake action models, simply slip your ramrod down the bore. And your ramrod on an unloaded gun should be 3/4 inches beneath the muzzle. If you're at 3/4 inches, your gun is unloaded. The other thing you can do to absolutely positively check to make sure your rifle is unloaded is to break open the gun, take out the breech plug, and visually inspect your bore. On the side lock models, there are two things you can look at. One is scribing a line on your field ramrod for an unloaded barrel. Simply take your ramrod, slip it down the bore, and if your scribed line meets up with your muzzle, you have an unloaded gun. On some of our other models with a wooden ramrod, on an unloaded gun, the ramrod comes down flush with the top of your muzzle. This is to help indicate that you have an unloaded gun. When you go to shoot your rifle at the range, on your first load, the best rule of thumb is to scribe a second line that marks the depth of where a full load is on your ramrod. Also, you can take your range rod, like the Traditions range rod here, and scribe lines for your unloaded marks on varying barrel lengths. You can use this as a secondary check and/or for use at the range for checking to make sure your rifle is loaded and/or unloaded.